Hello, you're watching Bearwood West Yard, and this is the December 2019 layout update. This is going to be a fairly quick layout update, mainly because not a lot has actually been going on the layout itself over the past couple of months. It's mainly been on the secret wagon project that the majority of the effort's been worked on, but I'll be leaving that till the end of the video. Right, so I'm going to start this layout update now on the west end of the layout. So starting with the bridge, I'm going to say that the bridge is only a temporary measure here, as it doesn't look very nice, and that's just simply just a couple of bits of wheels girders, some plastic hard sheet, and brick texture paper glued onto cardboard, and that for the supports, and I don't think it looks too good. Gives me dimensions and that though to be able to make a nicer bridge, so that's going to be something that's going to be worked on in the new year. It's more Scenic that's been worked on, and this is very recent. So this this road, supposed to represent a pebble type track. This is majority polyfiller, which has had some light grey and some brown ballast added to it in the mix, and then to create the pothole effect I waited till it was almost dry and almost set, and then I scooped little bits out of it, put my finger in it, and just made it to give it some dips and unevenness. And then moving on to the back, so where the proper Scenics are. So I'm depicting a Heathland, so I've gone for the proper out in rural Dorset appearance. So although the lighting's not that great, we've got gorse bush that was done using polyfibre, and then spraying it with a lot of layering spray and just covering it in green scatter, hoovering it off with a keyboard hoover so that I can reuse it, and also placing on top of it very finely some yellow flowering foliage, also from Woodland Scenics. And then all of the static grass that I've used is all from the WWS range. There's probably about 4 or 5 different types used in there, and various sizes. I think I'd be here forever trying to remember all of them that I used. I haven't cleaned up the back scenes yet, and I can't remove the back scenes, so I had to do it rather unneatly, but I'm either going to paint over it or see if I can scrub it off. Network rail van, that's another recent purchase. And then down the back is you actually get your access road onto the Heathland. And then for the heathers, especially, this is my favourite area. You get for the heathers, I used some Woodland Scenics purple flowering foliage, used a little bit of that, and then with a very fine brush put some Vallejo paints, pink and purple on there, just to give a bit of variation with the header colours, as around here they're more pink than purple. And then around here we've got more of a burnt area, so like where there's been a heath fire, and that I'm going to add a few trees and seafoam trees around, and then maybe a couple of burnt and just old sticks that have dried up. But yeah, that's how I've done the Heathland so far. The gates are from Scale Model Scenery, and those boulders are straight out of the garden. As we now move around the yard, you'll see that I've done the rather painstaking task of hand painting the rails. I've done these all a MIG medium rust. I do like the MIG rust paints range. They're expensive for what they are, however they give a really good effect, so I'd say that, I think I've said it before, that they're worth every penny. Can't remember if I've shown it before, but down by the signal, I've got a set of relay boxes, polyfiller base, left to dry for a couple of days, and then when almost dry, inserted some scale model scenery safety posts and painted them yellow before I did so, before I installed them, and then also used scale model scenery cable trunking, which is almost all the way around. That's another thing that I've done. So I've put all the cable trunking down and I've put all the lids on them as well. Another thing that I've been working on is the third rail. This is incredibly time consuming as well, as you've got to drill holes in the sleepers. Sometimes the drill bit wants to break on you, which is a pain in the backside, but it does give a really good effect when it's done. It takes about an hour to lay probably about 2 foot of third rail, and it's mostly on the down line that I've done the majority of it. The chairs are in on the up line for the other side, but in all I've probably got about 3 meters of third rail in, and that's still probably another 4 meters to go in total. On the east end and station side, nothing's really happened other than the aforementioned third rail. I have, however, on the back of the embankment, where the access road will go for network rail vehicles, I've started building that up with card to start bridging the gaps, so to say, between the styrene sheets, and also to start to create the profile of the road. And then behind the Class 08, where the lighting again is not the best, I have included the old shunter siding. So I mentioned this in the previous layout update that it was an idea. I have done it, so it looks almost as if that there was an old turnout here, an old set of points. The rails were sold off for scrap, but the sleepers were left in situ, and because it was too much work, the end of the siding and the buffer stop was just left derelict. I think it's quite a nice addition to the layout. Now for new additions, I've only got a couple of things for this layout update. This is a cross-country class 220 Voyager. I've been after one for a good 6 months or so. Saw it listed on Hatton's for 225 quid. I thought it was quite expensive, but then again I hadn't seen one about for a while, so I nabbed it and here it is. It is a DC version, so I'm going to have to hardwire it to DCC. This will involve having to hardwire in a DCC chip and either 1 or 2 accessory decoders into either end as well. So that's going to be a first for me, and then I've got the 158 to do, which I believe I showed in the last layout update, which nothing further has gone on with. Now the collection of auto balusters and the rake of it, that's gone up by 5 wagons. I can't remember if this did feature in the last layout update or not, so if it did I do apologise. But I acquired these off of a chap off of a Facebook group, and they do look rather nice. They are weathered as well. I'm not sure about whether I'm going to convert them to HQAs or not, as I've got a big enough project on my hands at the minute. Speaking of which, let's take a look. Now, the big reveal of the big wagon project. So this is something that has not been attempted before. I saw that in a modelling magazine back in 2009 that it was announced by Dapol. However, it was later cancelled for some unknown reason. My presume is that because of the amount of work and the sheer detail involved in it, and from first-hand experience, that's what I've come to draw. This is going to be something that not everyone's going to have thought about, but it being modern image is going to come as a little bit of a surprise, as no one has, to my knowledge, has actually attempted them. So I'm attempting a long welded rail train, or rail delivery train as it's formerly known as. From starting on the first wagon to the time of filming, I've spent between about 4.5 months on both of these wagons. Neither of them are complete as of yet. There's a few final details to add. In the foreground now, you'll see that I've got one of the main rack wagons. These are an absolute bee to make, as was the chute wagon. I've used ready to run chassis for these, so I used a Hatton's FEA S wagon for these, and then for the racks I used plasticard, and then as you can see that I've only got one of the half the mid supports in, and then the end supports are yet to be added. The racks took about 6 hours each, and from looking at the whole 13 wagon rake, a good 8 or 9 of them have racks on them, so there's quite a lot of effort in it, which is probably another reason, and they're so tight as well, in the sense that you can barely fit any rails through them in the size and the gauge that you've got. So it's completely understandable why the manufacturers, especially Dapol, as they announced them, had cancelled them. So that's an overlook at the JZA, of which is the code for the carrier. Moving on to the chute wagon, say YEA, or a yeah if you're cool. So this wagon again was an absolute bee to make. If I ever got asked to make one again, I would just say no, because I've spent 3 months on this one. The JZA is actually probably about 6 weeks in, and that's almost done, whereas this is a good 3.5 months of solid bashing it out. This was done from a Hornby KFA, and I actually had to butcher the wagon to the point where it just looked completely not like it was. I knew there was about 2 or 3 times during the making of it that I actually thought I was going to lose the wagon because of how tight the tolerances were, and I'm actually having trouble with the couplings, so I'm probably going to have to modify them. But other than that, I think the detail I've been able to include in it is mega. So if I look down like that, I see that I've got the rollers in. I don't know if it's in focus. See that I've got all the rollers in. I've all hand painted them. Support rollers on the top, so the guide rollers, those are yet to be painted. And then on the side here, I've still got the mesh cages to add, all of that, so all those holes had to be drilled out, cut, and there's just so much work involved that it's just agony. However, inside I have included, I don't know if you can see them in the orange, there is a little operator in there as well, so I've gone that extra mile and included the joystick controls and the operator. All in all, so far it is an enjoyable build, as much as it does wind me up. The amount of money that I've spent on paint as well to try and give an as realistic a look. For the YEA, I've gone with a rail track cream. I've gone for the same with the racks as well, and then for the JZA, I went for a weathered black. I think that was from Rail Match Paint, whereas the rail track was done by Phoenix Precision, of which contains lead. So I would also urge anyone thinking that if it doesn't wind you up, then it'll probably kill you. Just to joke around like that. But yeah, so all in all, so far it's a very windy up project. I've lost my rag with it several times, but it is very enjoyable at the same time. If anyone else, because I've done it and was thinking actually if he can do it, I can do it, then proceed at your own risk, as if you're like me, with the same attitude to it, you'll be surprised you're not bowled with the amount of times that I've pulled my hair out with it. Anyway, I'm going to leave this layout update there. If you've enjoyed it, feel free to put a thumbs up. If you've got anything to add or would like to say anything, then feel free to comment. And yeah, so feel free to like, comment, and if you want to follow the channel or just follow the wagons, then feel free to hit that subscribe button. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one.